Welcome back to Absolutely Marvel and DC. We are three guys that sit around chatting about your favorite superhero movies and TV shows. And today, there was a leak of a deal. Okay, so what happened is...
An old leak.
An old leak. That's what I was trying to say. So 2009, Disney bought the rights to Marvel, which meant that a lot of their deals needed to be renegotiated and re-talked about, but they couldn't be canceled, which means that when Sony wanted to move forward with Amazing Spider-Man, Disney had to redo the contract as per Disney's terms. So that's what leaked out. Now, some of this stuff may still be valid, some of it may not, because we all know notoriously there was a renegotiation that happened in
many.
in 2019. But some of this stuff is interesting because I guarantee a lot of this did carry over, and we wanted to go over this list here with the rules of what Sony was supposed to put into their Spider-Man movies and not supposed to put into their Spider-Man movies all the way back in 2011. Okay? There. Does that explain what we're doing?
This comes from the 2014 hack of Sony from a hacker group that people think is North Korea or something. I don't know. Yep. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
But yeah, this is the actual document from that. Unfortunately, it's not all the funny Amy Pascal emails. We're not getting into that right now.
Let's not. Yeah.
But
let's keep it Spider-Man related.
Yes. But yeah, there's a lot in here. Where do we want to start? Do we want to start?
Let's
with
just start at the
Spider-Man
top, I guess,
rules, or?
because
Okay.
And the reason we're doing this, for those who are wondering, is we actually found this kind of interesting because it explains a few things that have happened in the Spider-Man movies throughout the years, which is why I think a lot of this is still in place. There's just been alterations to make it work better as the MCU's gotten bigger.
And this is like Benny mentioned. This is an amendment. This is, I think, the third or second amendment to the original deal for the.
It says a second
Raimi
one.
movie.
So
okay, the second one. So, and there have been many more. This is just the as far as I know, the only one we have like actual plain access to.
Yeah.
So here's the actual exclusive stuff that Sony owns, or at least did in 2011. Okay, they own Spider-Man and Peter Parker in all existing and future versions, iterations, and alter egos of Spider-Man. Now this is key, and I find this interesting because everyone always likes to come into like comments when you don't know law or haven't seen this and be like, "Well, Miles came out so much later. Disney should just use him. There's no way they have the rights to him." No, they have future alternate versions, iterations, and alter ego. So if they make a character, it goes to Sony.
Right.
Yep.
And that specifically means that there's a lot of common sense talked about in the document, where that means if a character debuts in a comic book that has Spider-Man in the title, or is, I think they'd use the term like generally considered to be related to Spider-Man. And there's even a line that's like, if Marvel and Sony can't come to an agreement on what is generally considered, then I think usually that character gets frozen, which means that neither of them can use it. So it's like, nobody gets the toy.
There's an exhaustive list of the frozen characters on this list as well. Should we look at those?
Let's go to that. I want to go through the initial stuff, and then we'll go through what they can't have. But I just find it interesting because it explains some of the decisions that have happened in Spider-Man comics more recently, where he does seem self-contained and doesn't. And we all thought that the reason he was self-contained so well is because, well, it's Spider-Man. Why wouldn't he be self-contained? But it might have a lot to do with, hey, if the big event starts in Spider-Man but then goes into Marvel, Sony can argue that they own it.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
but if Spider-Man has almost nothing to do with it, and he's more of an ancillary, a part of it, but not a part of it, and like, I think that's where a lot of these recent decisions in the comics have come from.
Yeah.
Because he does seem on an island, kind of like what they did with X-Men. He's on an island. He does his own thing. He'll run into people, but
he runs into them, but he's not like important.
Yeah. And we've always just thought it's because Spider-Man's so big it doesn't matter. And I think that's kind of what happened. He is so big they were able to do this and none of us noticed. But they do it to the X-Men and we're all like, "Oh, it's just because of Fox."
Yeah.
Yeah, but it works over there. So let him keep doing it.
Yeah.
So all fictional characters, places, structures, businesses, groups, and other entities and elements known as the creative elements. And they list all of these out very soon. So basically anything that could be related to Spider-Man is Sony's.
Right. With two notable exceptions that they talk about here being Kingpin, who is often a Spider-Man villain, and Jessica Drew, who is often mistaken as a Spider-Man character.
Yep.
Yep. And they go into that. And then there's all existing characters are listed, or but were inadvertently omitted. So this basically says that if somebody didn't add it to the list, but you can argue that this has existed before the date of this document, they also are owned by Sony.
Right.
Why did Marvel write? Like, Marvel was literally like, we don't care. Give us money.
Yeah. This really illustrates like how effed they were in the 2000s, 90s to 2000s, where it's like, we'll just give it all of it.
Yeah. Because this literally states that they can argue any characters related to Spider-Man. And I guarantee that's a carryover from the original Amy Pascal deal.
Right? Like in perpetuity, like everything. If a character debuts in a Spider-Man book, it's theirs. And it's theirs. So it's like, and from the wellspring that is comics.
Yeah. So Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, every version of Morlun and all those other versions that have been introduced.
The Inheritors.
Are all owned by Sony.
Yeah.
Is Marlon on
like,
here?
What?
I don't think I
the
saw
Inheritors?
his name.
Morlun? I don't think he was introduced.
Yeah, he's on there.
Oh, is he?
He's on there?
Yep.
Okay. I must have glazed over him.
He's number
I was looking for
374.
But then as a follow-up to
course.
everything prior that was omitted, we can argue should be on this list. All newly created characters and other creative elements that first appear in a work titled or branded Spider-Man, or in which Spider-Man is the main protagonist. And that's why I said, I feel like that's why Spider-Man has never been a main protagonist in a Marvel crossover.
Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah, he'll show up
think-
and he'll say a few things and leave.
Yeah.
There's
he's there
another
as the
fun,
side character.
Another fun like legalese bit here. Ned Leeds is specifically mentioned here as a character that Sony owns. And so is Miles Morales. But something that is also said is that if you were to use an alternate universe version of a character, you have to use their name and their powers and their ancillary cast, which leads me to believe that the reason Ned in the movies is just Genki in all but name is because they didn't want to piss Sony off and have some weird deal by naming him Genki, because Peter is not Miles in those movies.
Right.
Who knows?
And the last thing I really want to state over here is, everything going forward, which, like I said, explains the nature of the comic books. Because I recently was going through, Spider-Man shows up in Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, where he introduces a lot of characters, concepts, and stuff like that.
Yep.
But he's like barely there, but they establish like he's kind of important because he's the one that pressures Daredevil. Like, I was waiting for a larger part of that crossover, and we never got it. And it kind of makes sense because Spider-Man, if he's in too much of another book, Sony can argue.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that explains why his crossovers are minimal.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what if Spider-Man showed up in a Marvel Comics event? Like, let's say the upcoming Eternals book that they're doing, where it's like Avengers, Eternals, X-Men.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man's in the book, and he plays a pivotal role, and a character is invented in that event, or in that issue where Spider-Man is a pivotal character. Could Sony argue that character was invented while Spider-Man was the protagonist of that issue, that they own him?
They could. By this, they could argue that.
If Sony was upset, which after Morbius, maybe they are, then they definitely could. And that's the thing is, like, this deal, like, Sony has had an iron grip on Spider-Man for so long. And they want to do whatever they want with this character. And, like, this document kind of, like, is evidence that, like I think they've been playing nice with Marvel for a while because Marvel's been making them money. But, you know, they still have this document that they could go back on and be like, hey, look at this. This you agreed to. And maybe this is null and void now. We don't know, but
I hope so.
I guarantee some of this has been carried over because like they still treat
100%.
a lot of this like this is happening.
You could apply this to any decisions you've made, like any decisions they've made over the last couple of years. You could just look at this document and go,
Yeah. Venom movie, Morbius movie, Craven movie, like it's all here. It's all in this document.
Yeah. So last thing I want to go over in the major things is that they basically state, like, Marvel lined up what his origin, secret identity, alter egos, powers, costumes, equipment, and other elements associated with Spider-Man are. And Sony's not allowed to change those.
Right.
We have
At
legal
all.
definitions for who Spider-Man Peter Parker is and what his
And what he is
powers
not.
are and do. Yeah, and what he's not.
Like, for example,
He can't be
Peter
gay.
Parker is not gay and never will
Or
be.
anything other than white.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he can't say fuck. Peter Parker can never
Unless-
say fuck.
Unless he's wearing a black costume.
He also
Exactly.
cannot deal drugs unless he's wearing a black.
Unless he's wearing the black suit.
No, actually, he does not use foul language beyond what is permitted in a PG-13 rated film is the only point here where it doesn't mention the black symbiote. So there is a line in here where where Peter Parker's not allowed to smoke tobacco or deal drugs or drink too much alcohol. He can do all of those things if he's wearing the black suit, but he still can't say fuck if he's wearing
I love this breakdown of Peter Parker's character traits. His full name is Peter
Let's do
Benjamin
it, yeah.
Parker. He is Caucasian and heterosexual.
Yes.
His
He's
parents
male.
become absent from his life during childhood. Let's leave out the shield thing. From the time his parents become absent, he is raised by Aunt May and Uncle Ben in New York City.
You cannot change that.
Powers. He gains his powers while attending either middle school or college. No!
weird.
He gains his powers from being bitten by a spider. He designs his first red and blue costume. The black costume is a symbiote and is not designed by him.
That is a caveat in here. Like, they cannot use it.
He is raised in a middle-class household in Queens, New York. He attends or attended high school in Queens, New York, and he attends or attended college in New York City, New York.
He was never going to MIT. That was never something that was going to happen for him.
But you know what's funny? I remember watching that movie and being like, he better not go to MIT. We better not screw this up. He goes to ESU. He is on a scholarship.
Totally.
Okay, so I also love mandatory character traits. Male, does not torture,
Male.
does not kill. So I want to do this caveats with an asterisk. He's allowed to do this stuff if he has the black suit. So he has to be male, does not torture, asterisk, so he could torture as Black Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Does not kill unless
can.
in self-defense of others or self. So he can kill if he's in the black suit. Does not use foul language, like you said. Does not smoke tobacco unless he's in the black suit. I'm just picturing like the Venom suit. And he's like, Marlboro.
What a cool scene. It's awesome.
Does not sell or distribute illegal drugs unless in the black suit.
He's in the black suit.
Yo,
Venom's
you
a
want
drug
some
dealer.
weed?
We all know this.
Does not abuse alcohol unless in the black suit.
Yeah.
And then
Also
no
drunk.
asterisks. Does not have sex before the age of 16 and does not have sex with anyone below the age of 16.
The black suit
Fair.
is not a pedophile. Venom is not a pedophile.
Thank God.
Finally.
And there is a bullet point, not a homosexual, unless Marvel has portrayed that alter ego as a homosexual.
Forward thinking.
That's some serious power you're wielding there, Marvel.
Yeah. Peter Parker cannot be gay unless he's from another universe where everyone's gay.
The approved costumes are also in here. The costume that is form-fitting, primarily red and blue or red and black per the 1962 comic with the spider on the front and the back. A costume that is form-fitting black and gray with a spider on the front and black. A costume that is generally similar in overall appearance to the one of the 15 costumes listed in Schedule 4A.
Thank you.
Or
It's
a
like
new
small
costume.
amount of costumes to list, but
Yeah.
Or a new costume that is generally similar in overall appearance to a costume that appears in a
Yeah,
post.
which,
Any
by the way-
costume going forward.
the language used later in this document to clarify what named costume or new costume means just completely throws any of the bullet points that they use out the window. They're just like, if it looks like Spider-Man, you can, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but there is a list, though, and it's Spider-Man 2099, 2020, Commando Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Man 2211, Megamorph, The Spider from Exiles, Millennial Visions, Earth X, Spider-Man Noir, Wrestling Costume from Amazing 15, Spider Armor, Insulated Costume / Electro Suit, The Future Foundation,
Yeah, I like that one.
Scarlet Spider / Ben Reilly, and Spider-Man Miles Morales. Unless it also looks like
Those are the
Spider-Man.
ones you could use. You can
And
put
before
Peter
we go
Parker
into
in
the
any of
Frozen
those.
list, I go into what they're allowed to use and not allowed to use. I want to do one last thing because I liked this line, the consultation, because we always wondered how much control does Marvel have over what Sony is
this
doing.
Interesting.
So Sony has to go to Kevin Feige, and it states Kevin Feige and Tom Cohen. I don't know if Tom Cohen is still there because I've never heard that name. But they have to go to them.
Right.
Do you think he's still there?
No, I was thinking he might be from Fox. Maybe it's like, I don't know.
Well, two creative
No, it says
executives.
He's from
Disney.
two creative executives designated by Marvel, currently Kevin Feige and Tom Cohen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in
So
2011.
they have to. Sony has to run these things by them: the script, the top 5 principal cast members, the individual producers, the director of photography, the production designer, the composer, the editor, the costume designer, the principal visual effects vendor, design of the costume of Spider-Man, and the design of the principal villain. So Kevin Feige, since at least 2011, has had control on final say on everything going on in the Spider-Man.
Not final say. That is one of the most important bits of this document. I don't know if this was part of the amendment, but I think it was because it's pretty heavily emphasized. Sony has final say on everything, but they have to at least tell Kevin Feige what they're doing, what they're up to.
They have to consult with him.
And they have, if
right.
they don't respond, if Marvel doesn't respond within 5 days or 2 days during production, then Sony doesn't need to hear back at all. They can just do whatever they want. So I think that's why all in this leak where all of the Amy Pascal emails going back and forth with Kevin Feige, where Kevin Feige was like, "Hey, here's how you make this movie better."
Yeah,
that is why none of that went to the top and actually got done, because Amy Pascal was like, "Nah, that costs money.
Nah, yeah,
we're not gonna fix
do
it."
that.
Well, and then going into the money, they are required to put $75 million into the movie. It has to at least, it can't be any higher than PG-13, and it has to at least be in 2,000 theaters when it comes out. And I guarantee that that's in there to prevent situations like the 90s Fantastic Four movie, where they went as cheap as possible to retain the the rights of the whole thing.
Right, like you better be full in on a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
There's also stuff in here about and it's like it's like Disney holding on to the Mickey Mouse copyright, where this will never come to pass, but if Sony doesn't make a Spider-Man movie in something like 7 years, if they're doing it right, then the copyright will lapse, but that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
No.
They just have to start at the bare minimum. I believe they have to start production on a Spider-Man movie of any kind within 3 years of the previous one's release.
Yeah.
And that gets extended if they release more and more and more.
Right.
I do love
crazy.
that going through this, they also go back in again to Spider-Man's mandatory character traits. Like,
Well, they clarify it.
Yeah. Well, let me get into that. Like, okay.
let me expand on what this means.
So,
Thank
and
goodness.
what we noted also is that they use Spider-Man 2099 as an example, but basically what they state is every alternate version of Spider-Man has to have a correlating, the exact name, the exact costume, the exact power set. You can't change these things.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. It also explains why we don't see too many of them, and now that we are in the cartoon, they're all perfect.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, right? That's and I think that's a lot of why they don't want to take too many creative liberties at this point, because it seems like weirdly in this document Peter is the most flexible character in appearance, at least, despite he has to be white. But like you can they give specific examples where like you can put Peter in the 2099 costume, but you cannot put Miguel O'Hara in any other costume other than one that is 2099 or looks similar enough to 2099. Just an interesting distinction.
Like, okay. Good thing that's written down.
Sure.
So all right.
that's
So
where we
moving
are.
into you wanted to do the Frozen characters first.
Oh, yeah. These are just Frozen characters. These
I
are
do love
characters that no one can use.
Yeah.
Okay,
Marvel
and this is
nor
because they
Sony
couldn't
can
come to
use these.
terms. Bear in mind, Kingpin has already been a caveat. He can be used elsewhere, even though he fights Spider-Man a lot. And Jessica Drew, because she's not technically a Spider Person, has also been written out as that they can use her elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, there's Jessica Drew. We'll talk about her real quick.
Yeah.
She's right there. She can be used by Sony as Spider-Woman, but by Marvel as anything else, pretty much. But The terminology is confusing, but I think the reason for that is why we got rumors that in Spider-Man Homecoming, Jessica Drew is going to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Yeah.
Because I think Marvel can use Jessica Drew, but they can't use Spider-Woman.
Probably not.
Well, isn't that
just
kind of what happened with Wanda and Quicksilver? Where it's like, we can use Pietro and Wanda, but we can't use Scarlet Witch and
Quicksilver.
Yeah, well, we can't use them as mutants, but we can use them. It's
Yeah.
it's very confusing, and it's like probably why she didn't end up in the movie, because it's like why. Also, Jessica Drew as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is like a very small part of her history, and that would just be a name, wasting a name. So,
Oh, they've never done that before. But anyway,
Yeah. But yeah, the one that I love is under this list. You got the bombastic Bagman, because it's a Fantastic Four costume with
Right.
Spider-Man. Cosmic Spider-Man. The Captain Universe thing is interesting. I'm like, oh, can you use Cosmic Spider-Man?
that one
Nobody
was
can
interesting.
use it. Bizarrenage is in here because it's an amalgam character. I love that.
There's a lot of there is a footnote in here that's like it basically at one point there's like a paragraph that just says any character that's Spider-Man fused with another character cannot be used by anyone.
Spider Phoenix, Spider Hulk, Spider Boy, Spider Boy 2099, Spider
Skrull
4,
Spider-Man.
Skrull Spider-Man.
Oh, so we're not going to see him in Secret Invasion.
Oh. Well,
Nope.
Or maybe we will. Who
Maybe.
knows?
This is
I think
2011.
MODOK Spider-Man is in here.
MODOK Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's a good point of who knows. Is there is also a point here where I think Marvel says there's a point where it says Marvel cannot use anything from Marvel Zombies, What If, or Marvel Apes, which
Right.
that
But
is changed.
there's a whole show. There's a whole
Right.
episode called Marvel Zombies, which features Spider-Man in it.
Exactly. So things have clearly changed, and obviously Spider-Man is in the MCU, so things have clearly changed. But
That's true.
by how much? Who knows?
I like that Spider-Girl number 3 is on here. Ashley Barton.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I guess that's from Old Man Logan.
Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
And so is Kitty Pryde Shadowcat, Spider-Girl 4. I didn't know she could Spider-Girl.
From Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, probably, right?
Right.
Oh, that would make sense, yeah. Spider Phoenix, I did like that one.
Yep.
But yeah, Black Marvel as he appears in Slingers.
There we
Wait
go.
a minute. Peter Porker is frozen on this list. Interesting.
Hey, yeah.
Well, also 2011, and we know that there's been alterations.
Right.
Plus,
But
I
that's
mean, you got to think
interesting.
the Frozen list is they couldn't come to an agreement. That's what that is, remember?
yeah.
Yeah.
So all that would need to be is they change that. Oh, hey, we want to use Peter Porker in this movie, and Kevin Feige goes, unfreeze Peter Porker.
I would love to hear the conversations that lead to freezing a character. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know where Spider-Ham sits.
Right. Hey, really
And
quick.
this list is probably just a huge list of like, we don't think we'll ever use them.
We're
and
not
we
going to
don't
go
want,
over it.
And we don't want to go over who owns who on this. So
No, literally, all the amalgam characters are in there. So it's like, yeah, no. I like this little caveat here. It's not about the Frozen characters, but Marvel may enjoin a picture if it does not conform to the foregoing mandatory character traits. For any other failure to conform to character integrity or the other requirements, Marvel's sole remedy is damages. Their only restitution is money. There's nothing else. We're not going to give you anything other than damages.
Here's some money.
Whatever that might be.
But we still have Spider-Man.
Yes. There's nothing in here that says basically like, if we screw up, we lose the rights to anything. Like it's
Right.
It's just like,
Yeah,
we
they're
will pay
only-
you whatever it costs if we
Their
screw
only
up.
requirement is that they have to keep making Spider-Man things
Yeah.
forever.
What a terrible goddamn thing to have in this document.
Also, there's a whole list. There's like 26 characters from the Spidey Super Stories, one of which is
Yes.
Silly Willy, and I just love that a lawyer had to write Silly Willy
They probably had to talk about
on
it
this
too.
official document.
And then there's also the list here of characters that I guess appeared at some point prominently in a Spider-Man book
Yeah.
that Marvel owns still.
Oh.
So yeah, so it's the list at the bottom, Marvel reserved characters. From what I understand, this is just a non-exhaustive list of characters who Marvel owns the rights to that are here for clarification.
yeah.
And the reason why because I first thought when I was reading the list, like, this is characters that are prominently related to Spider-Man or maybe first appeared in Spider-Man comics. but like Iron Man and Captain America are on this list.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Ant-Man.
I think it's just
Hawkeye.
like a list.
Yeah, it's probably just a list of characters they know they want to use possibly at some point.
Right.
Yep.
So they're just like, don't even ask. Don't even ask about this list.
Right.
Yeah, because there's
Justin
a note
Hammer
at
and
the
the
bottom
Fantastic
that
Four
says
are on here.
Yeah, there's a note at the bottom that says this is a non-exhaustive list of Marvel Reserve characters and is included for the sake of clarity.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that is
so it's just a list of
characters.
don't even ask about these. If it's on this list, you don't even have to send the email.
don't
basically.
try us, Sony.
Yeah.
Tony Stark is
Yeah.
on this list. We got plans.
Teams and groups like Hydra, Shield, Stark Industries,
The
AIM,
Hand. Yeah, all the
Hand,
majors in here.
the Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts is on here. Yep. But I like some more of the obscure ones. The Hood.
Yeah. Hey. I saw Despair was on there. I'm like, really? Okay.
Night Thrasher is on here.
Good.
I do like that Vlad III Dracula is specified and on the list.
And anthropomorphic variations like Croak and Badger and Punfisher.
And then there's the list of, but then there's the sad list of ones that by default Sony owns.
Yeah.
Is there anything of note on here? Because this is huge. There's like 700 names on this list.
There's 700
They
names.
got
and
Big
it's like-
Wheel.
They got Big Wheel. I bet they Rocket Racer. Yep, they do.
There's a whole lot. There's nothing like surprising because it is pretty much like
there's some
common
like,
sense.
Prime Minister Limpka of Symkaria.
Yeah, they probably
What
have
an
the entire
important
country of
character.
Symkaria.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would
I'm
make
just saying,
sense.
like, some of these, I'm like, that's such an obscure thing that you're making sure that you own.
Yeah.
Like,
there's like
Nickel,
900
Talking Wolf.
names on this list. They were
Yep.
comprehensive.
yeah. Imagine being that lawyer who has to read every Spider-Man comic from the
God.
60s and write every new name that popped up.
I'm sure for up until probably like 2015, there were a team of lawyers who were reading comics and adding people like Silk onto this list, just
Yep.
ticking boxes. Ghost Spider.
Yeah.
There was probably
All
someone whose
those
entire
characters.
job was to keep up with Marvel Comics
Yep.
and continually notate these documentations to ensure that it involved everyone humanly possible.
Yeah. I wonder if, I feel like there isn't, but like I wonder if there's somebody at Marvel whose job it is to keep an eye on things, like editors who are supposed to like go, forward that information to Sony Pictures, like send this information. Like when you
Yeah,
invent a
I
new
was thinking
character,
about that.
like,
Right.
yeah. Or there's a Sony rep that like works in the building at Marvel.
Yeah,
It's
because
like-
there's definitely like a guy, because there, I'm sure Kevin Feige's not reading his email for every little thing that they do
No.
on these movies.
Yeah.
No. No, he has Tom for that.
Of course.
But
So,
yeah.
but all right, I think this is a fun read though, just a kind of interesting thing in general.
Yeah.
We are wow, this was 30 minutes. Wow, we are absolutely Marvel and DC. My name is Benny, that is Dylan, and that is Sal. And what do you guys think about this? Does a lot of their recent actions make a lot more sense that a lot of this carried over? But what do you guys think? We'll see you guys next time right here at the Absolute Armada.